Okay, Kel, it says we're live streaming now. Are we on the right one?
It's just doing the connection, so just I'll let you know.
Yep, no drama. And Andrew and Jenny sitting in the waiting room?
Not yet, no.
Maybe he's not on camera either.
Who isn't?
I can't see Libby on camera.
Yes, she is.
Okay.
It looks like she's got her camera back to front. Like she's
Okay. Libby, can you hear that? You got your camera back to front?
Wait. She's good now.
Oh, good. Thank you. How are we going, Kel?
Yeah, it says we're live, but it's not appearing on my screen. But that's okay. We'll.
Are we recording? We're recording so that that can occur, Beauty. Beautiful. Excellent. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this special meeting. Thank you for making yourselves available today. And at this time, when we have commercial items, it is important that we deal with them in a timely manner. So you'll notice that I am sitting in the CEO's office, and thank you each for joining us from your homes and or workplaces. So if I could first begin with the statement of acknowledgement. We acknowledge the traditional owners of this land in which we are meeting, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and those from other communities who are here today with us online, for they hold the memories, the tradition and the culture of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Item 3 on our agenda this morning is apologies and requests for leave of absence. Given you can't go anywhere, people, I'm guessing there is no holiday requests. Item 4 is declarations under Acts, regulations, codes and local laws. We don't need to read out the recording. Item 5 is declarations of councils of any conflict of interest. I know Councillor Mildred has one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I have a conflict with the 223 hearing.
Okay, thank you. I'll get to read out your rationale when we come to that. That would be great. Nobody else has one that I'm aware of. Terrific. Okay, we too have 2 reports for determination. And again, I'll just restate that the reason for holding this as a special meeting is to deal with commercial aspects so that they are done in an appropriate and timely manner. Item 6.1 is section 223 submission hearing for lot 2. Bandy Anna is the description on our report. Starts on page 7. I'm just going to check with our administrator. Kelly, do we have the submitters online?
No, not yet, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Rightio. Well, what we might do then, if everyone will indulge me, we're all right to move these around, councillors. Deb, I'm going to look to you for a nod. We can move these reports around. So we're going to move to item 6.2. So you don't need to disappear, Councillor Mildred. You can stay online. We're just going to, so we can keep dealing with business and we're not sitting here twiddling our thumbs. So item 6.2, so we'll come back to item 6.1 when we have the people presenting online. 6.2 is the proposed sale of land at Logic, extension request to heads of agreement. Now, councillors, before I look to someone to move the recommendation, which is actually on page 22 of 26 of the special meeting thing, I'm actually just going to get the CEO to run through this report and give us some facts up front to put on, just I guess, on record. So, CEO, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, you will recall that we brought this paper to you quite some time ago with regards to the sale of the Wodonga Solar land to Wodonga Solar, so where they currently have the lease to purchase that land. Following a previous recommendation of council, we set up a heads of agreement with Wodonga Solar. And Wodonga Solar had some strict terms in that heads of agreement with regards to reaching a contract of sale within a period of 2 months from your last resolution. We were notified before that deadline of the 28th of August that Wodonga Solar were unable to proceed with the contract of sale. and they couldn't actually put a fixed timeline on when they would be able to proceed. The delay at the moment is in their inability to secure a grid connection, and they don't know how long that grid connection will take. So without any real target date to set, they sought an extension of the heads of agreement. Our proposition to you as the council is that we feel that there's a lot of risk associated with that. And we also sort of think that because we can't have a determined extension around any fixed date, we believe that the terms of the heads of agreement have been breached. And our sort of recommendation is that we don't offer a further extension when we really don't know how long that would be. So our suggestions to you for consideration is that we now place that piece of land back onto the open market. Placing it back onto the open market doesn't stop Wodonga Solar from rebidding through that process. And in many respects, this may give them some time to establish the grid connection issue and meet their request in another way in terms of extending their time before they're in a position to purchase. But at the same time, it opens up that piece of land to the market for anybody else to bid. I'll just remind people that that piece of land still has the Wodonga Solar lease in place, and the lease is paid up until the end of August. And depending on the decision today, obviously, we would be making sure the lease continues to be paid monthly in advance thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you. CEO, while you're there, can you please just describe to council and for the community at large? So off the back of the recommendation today, what would the process be in terms of coming back to council and etc., please?
So the process would be that we would market the site for sale in accordance with council's divestment policy. Now, clearly that takes quite a bit of time. It would go into the open market and we would receive bids. We will make a determination as to what the best way to divest that property is, but it will be in accordance with the council approved divestment policy. That process obviously takes some time, and it would be a matter that we won't be able to deal with in this council term. So we would bring those offers back to a new council, and then of course we would go through the normal sale of council land process in terms of the 223 process for community consultation, and then back to council for an ultimate decision. So this process is going to take a period of time, and it will end up coming back to the new council in the new council term.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I thought it was important that we had that information before us and also for the wider community knowledge. Councillors, we did talk about the recommendation that's on page 22, that item 1 in that recommendation was a suggested word change that would be picked up to I guess reflect the options that were put before us. So the recommendation that actually is on the table from the officers and from the CEO. So item 1 would actually read that council formally rejects the request for an extension of the heads of agreement. Full stop. Council formally terminates the heads of agreement with Wodonga Solar Proprietary Limited. The other 3 dot points there, 2, 3 and 4 would stand as is. So that is the, yes, Councillor Mildred.
Madam Mayor, can I suggest that perhaps rather than in point 3, rather than saying that the land described above be sold, that we should actually say the land above described above be advertised for sale, because we may or may not get a sale.
Yep. So those 2 changes there for recommendation. And so I'm going to go through it again. So item 1 is that council formally rejects the request for, so this is a recommendation that's sitting on the table. Council formally rejects the request for an extension of the heads of agreement. Council formally terminates the heads of agreement with Wodonga Solar Power Proprietary Limited. 2 stays the same. 3, that the land described above be advertised for sale in accordance with the council's property divestment policy, and 4 remains the same. So councillors, do I have someone move that recommendation? Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Thanks, Councillor Mildred. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to say that I'm voting in favour of that recommendation for a couple of reasons. One is I think we've given Wodonga Solar ample opportunity to come to live up to their parts of this heads of agreement. So I think it's we've given them enough time. I thank them for trying. You know, that they probably didn't know that they wouldn't be able to get a grid connection in time themselves, and I would invite them to revisit their sale process now that we go back out to the public when we do. You know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. You know, when we first voted on this for a lease, the lease was very, very attractive, and so we all took that, and it continues to be. So one thing that this recommendation is, it's just a termination of the heads of agreement. We still have the lease in place, and they still have a planning permit in place from Indigo for a solar farm there. So I think taking it out to market again will be attractive. And again, it gives them another opportunity to buy the land. There was differing valuations come in last time when we were trying to work out how much to sell the land for. You know, again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. If we had taken it to market back then, you know, could we have got more? Maybe. Could we have got less? Well, maybe that too. Essentially, at the moment, it's just farming land with a planning permit and a very good lease in place. Moving forward with that, you know, we'll take what we've learned from the past and hopefully invite some new people to come to the table and make an offer on what could be a very, very good deal for them. And also, you know, we're here to make the best decisions at the time for our community. And at the time we had a deal on the table, the money was there, and unfortunately it hasn't come through at this stage. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Councillor Mildred.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Many of the things I agree with Councillor Lowe. The main fundamental difference is, and the reason I'm supporting this motion is because throughout this process of sale, as distinct from the agreement for the lease, throughout this process of sale, I've been of the view that we should have gone out to a wider process and advertised it for sale in the first instance, rather than dealing solely with the Wodonga Solar Company. And this basically gets the resolution. This resolution would get to the point where I was seeking to be some time ago. So that's why I'm supporting this. Certainly the land is lucrative on the one side in that it does have planning permits in place. It does have a very lucrative lease in place. But on the other side, we're aware that the grid system is not at a sufficient capacity to readily avail connections, and there needs to be a lot of work and negotiation and so on to ensure that that grid connection is available. And we understand that that's been the reason for the delay. So you got the planning permit and the lucrative lease in place on the land, which makes it attractive in the first instance. The grid connection is a little bit on the opposite side of that ledger. But nonetheless, I see this as important to put it out to the public for sale. If we get an offer that's acceptable to council based on valuation and or other considerations that council might have at the time, then we sell the land. If we don't, then in my view, we don't sell it. We sit and wait for the next round of opportunities. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Other councillors. Councillor Watson, you've got your speaker off, then I'll come to you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Watson.
Madam Mayor, I might have it off, but the comments made by my fellow councillors, I'm very happy with. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Hall.
Okay, look, back in December, just before Christmas, we had a last minute special meeting to do with this sale. And I believed it was rushed at the time. And a similar situation happened. It was a rushed meeting for the lease agreement to be signed off with the council. I did not support the recommendations to sell the land without taking it to the public for an expression of interest in December. But here we are again, another 12 months down the track. And the sale hasn't nearly 12 months down the track, and the sale hasn't moved forward. I have lost a lot. We've lost about 9 months, and I have not got a lot of confidence with this going forward. But I do support it going out as an expression of interest. But I do believe we need another independent valuation of the land, because we're looking at another 12 months since that last valuation was done, and I'd like to see where it sits in as far as its pricing when we put it on the market. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hall. Councillor Bennett, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Bennett, you want to go first? Then I'll come to you, Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, look, I won't repeat. I agree with everything Councillor Lowe has said, but just two more other points in terms of the special meetings that we've had to hold this. It is really important. You know, we've all probably heard feedback from businesses around how things take a long time. So that's why we do need to have these special meetings to make sure we do process things in a timely manner. And I'm not sure what the comment meant by we've lost 9 months, because we have got 9 months worth of lease payments. So I wasn't sure what that comment by Councillor Hall meant, that we've lost 9 months.
Great. Councillor Hall, did you want to respond? Did you want to answer that question?
Yeah, look, I was just saying that I believe this sale has just dragged on and on and on. And if we'd taken it to the sale, expressions of interest back when December, when it first come up to be sold, we could have had a sale and moved forward with the development.
Thanks. Councillor Mitchell.
No comment, Madam Mayor.
Thanks. Before I come back to you, Councillor Lowe, couple of things. First of all, thank you to the team for working hard. When you actually do large commercial deals like this, I'm a complete juxtaposed position to Councillor Hall in that having done quite a few large commercial deals, this isn't, I guess, something that isn't normal. You should expect them to take some considerable time. Negotiations should, because that means we're getting the best deal for our community. And sometimes the commercial reality is they don't work, and that's okay too. To Councillor Bennett's point about being responsive, I think it would be a remiss of us as a council, and there is often the accusation that government moves too slow, that we do need to respond to commercial timeframes and commercial realities. So if we don't hold a special meeting or we don't deal with it in a timely manner, one, the risk is increased that we lose the commercial transaction, and that is not good for our community, and that is what we will always act in, is in the good faith and in the best interests of our community. Also, to the other point of Councillor Hall about valuation, just reminding councillors that this proposed sale originally to Wodonga Solar was actually well above valuation. So part of the process, we are required by government to follow a process, and that will require a new valuation. So, of course, you know, goes without saying. And so for me, again, I don't think we've lost opportunity. We've had a team through the CEO work very hard to try and get this heads of agreement locked down. Didn't work, that's okay. We aren't in a worse position. In my opinion, we go back out to market. We've still got those same things in place. We've still got a lease in place. We've still got a planning permit in place. But potentially the market is widened a little through some of the government initiatives around renewables. But as technologies improve, then potentially there's more companies out there who can actually step forward and enter this game. So this would come back to a new council, which I'm very comfortable with. Dealing with this to make sure that it gives the clean slate to go ahead and go to market is also very important for me. It makes sure we have good, clean process. So CEO, to you and your team, thank you very much. I'm very happy with the changes that have been suggested in that recommendation, and I do support this. So Councillor Lowe, to you for any close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's probably just a a good reminder to community that, you know, while some may say this is a delayed opportunity, a lost opportunity, it's actually an incredibly great opportunity. The land that we're talking about before Wodonga Solar approached us wasn't even due to be developed for probably another 20 years. You know, Logic is very successful, but it's also a staged development. So this particular piece of land that we're talking about wasn't even on the radar to be developed till then. So we've now created, we're 20 years ahead of schedule, not 9 months behind. So we're getting a really good income, and this is a really great opportunity. So whilst it's a shame that Wodonga Solar couldn't keep up their end of the bargain on their heads of agreement per se, it's created another opportunity for someone else or them to step back in and take on this project. And whilst, as Councillor Mildren said, you know, the grid connection is an unknown, you know, hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lowe. Councillors, I will put the motion. Remember that it has the 2 changes in it. Councillor's motion is before us. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. So I'm just going to check that we do have the presenters online. Terrific. Thank you. Let's all head back to section 6.1. It's the section 223 submission hearing for lot 2 Bandiana. And Councillor Mildren, you have a conflict. You'll need to leave us, but unfortunately you'll need to actually come back in right at the very end of the meeting.
So Councillor Mildren, Kelly will take you out of the meeting. So if you don't do anything, Kelly will move you into the waiting room and bring you back in when we've concluded.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mildren, can you just read out your conflict, please?
I have a conflict, an indirect conflict, because my business has previously been engaged by the submitter.
Thank you. So just sit there, Kelly, or take you off screen. Oh, hope that was Kelly and not Councillor Mildren. Terrific.
And
Thank you.
you're ready for the submitter, Madam Mayor?
Yes, please. Okay, have we got them on, Kelly? There you go. Good morning. Now, councillors, I'm just going to run through a bit of process reminder for you all. Welcome to Andrew, and I'm guessing it is Andrew and Jenny. I can't, oh, there you are. There you are. There's your little face on the screen. Good morning. Councillors, I'm just going to remind you that this is to hear the submitters. You are allowed to ask clarifying questions. We are not here for debate, and we are not here for decision. We are here to hear. So I'm just reminding everybody. So if you have any questions, if you can please jot those down, make a note, and we can ask those at the end. Other than that, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your submission, Andrew. Andrew Stern joins us. Jenny's not joining us? No, you're on mute, Andrew. Unmute yourself.
How's that?
That's perfect.
Sorry.
So
No,
Jenny's joining us.
just me.
I say just you this morning. Okay, terrific. So thank you again for your submission, and please, the table is yours.
Okay, well, look, thank you, councillors and Mark, for the opportunity. I'm not going to go through line by line my letter of the 27th of August, because I know it's attached as part of the agenda for today, and I'm sure everyone's read it. I do want to pick up though on 2 or 3 things, and I guess as far as I see it, there's one fundamental issue here which has resulted in another. At the moment, council is sitting on an offer which they're recommending to proceed to contract with at a price of $1.725 million versus our group that has lodged an offer that is about $285,000 superior to that without any conditions. And I think the primary reason that this situation has eventuated is that, to my mind, the sale process for this parcel of land is considerably flawed. And I'll tell you why I think it is. And then I'll just go on after that to discuss a few other matters. So council in electing to sell this parcel of land has, to my knowledge, run an advertisement advising of the sale or the forthcoming sale of this parcel of land. And beyond that, nothing to my knowledge, again, that I've seen was in the public domain advising of the sale of the land. So, for instance, lucky that I actually saw that the land was coming up for sale, because as I guess a reasonably prominent development group in the community, if I hadn't been aware of it through my own endeavours, I wouldn't have been aware of it at all. And I think this is one of the issues that we have, or certainly in this situation, with the sale of this land, is that there was really next to no marketing whatsoever. Now, I know council will be able to rely on the fact that it's discharged its statutory obligations, that all it's required to do is to run a notice in the newspaper. And so I'm not questioning that was clearly done, but I don't believe that there has been, certainly been to my knowledge, no marketing of the asset, no contact of the development community to advise them of the sale. And generally speaking, that's all about engendering as much interest in a parcel of land coming up for sale, to try and get as many developers as possible competing for the parcel. Why? Because that way you get it. Frankly, you get a better sale price, and generally you get better terms and conditions. So the sale of the land has proceeded. Obviously, upon contacting council, I've been provided with the expression of interest documentation. And again, the documentation provided is incredibly, as you would expect, is incredibly flexible, whilst it's very, on the one hand, it was very specific in terms of its criteria for rating potential tenderers. It also makes it very clear that council can disregard all of those criteria and frankly, select whatever criteria it wants. I have no issue with that. That's typically what a prudent vendor would do in selling a parcel of land. However, because of this process and the fact that after that initial expression of interest process closed, there was no reversion back to other offerors, such as ourselves, to advise them of the process other than after the event to confirm that council was indeed electing to proceed with another party. So I made reference in my letter to the fact that in a previous life, and I acted on many occasions for both councils, state governments and federal governments in disposing of surplus assets. And a standard process, apart from the fact that it would be fully marketed throughout the development or investment community, would be to run as a minimum a two-stage process, whereby once you've received your first round offers, you then revert back to maybe a very select shortlist of second round parties to extract the best terms, whether that be price and or terms and conditions that you possibly can. And to give you examples, I mean, there are parcels of land where upon a second round offer or a second round process being instigated have resulted in offers that can be 50 or 60% above what a first round offer, or what the highest first round offer was. So clearly from a pricing point of view, it's very rare that you would just run with the highest first round offer that was submitted. So that was the first part of the process. We then, having been notified that council was then intending to hold a special council meeting on Monday, the 27th of July, to advise an outcome. And I did listen into that. And at the conclusion of that meeting was advised that it was council's intention to proceed with Repus, but further negotiations were still to take place. And that was how that meeting concluded. I then, on the Thursday, submitted to the CEO an unconditional offer of $2,010,000 with a 10% deposit, balance payable 60, 90 days, absolutely no conditions. I was then, to that point, I'd had no written communication from council that my previous offer had not been accepted or that another offer was in the process of being accepted. Shortly thereafter, having spoken to the CEO who advised me that he would be back in touch, which he was shortly thereafter, but I then received a formal notification. Well, I say formal, it was a generic letter. It wasn't a Dear Andrew, it was just a Dear Sir, I think from memory, and it was obviously the standard council notification to advise that the offer from Repus Funds had been accepted. So my offer to council of $2,010,000 unconditional was made prior to receiving any formal communication that another offer had been accepted. Now, I can understand if council from the Monday to the Thursday when I submitted my offer had at that point a legally binding offer and acceptance with a party that was legal, as I say, legally binding. I could understand why you would be in a predicament whereby it might be difficult for you to proceed to entertain or accept an offer from another party. But bearing in mind that as of Monday morning, it was certainly advised that there were terms and conditions and price clearly that council needed to sort out with the preferred party, I would personally be very surprised if by the time my offer was received on Thursday, council had a legally binding document. I'm not talking about even having just a letter to a preferred party saying we're intending to accept your offer. In terms of legally binding document, I'd be very, very surprised knowing how this process works that council was in that position at the point at which it received my offer. So moving on from that, you have at the moment an offer from Repus, which well clearly is at a vastly inferior price to what our group is prepared to offer. Their offer is also subject to negotiation of a 173 and planning permit, and irrespective of how much of a preamble has been done in regard to looking at what that might entail, we all know that that can take months and months to sort out. So council, if it elects to proceed with its current offer, apart from again the fact of the price being where it is relative to our offer, is going to be in a situation where it will not settle this deal any time within I would suggest as an absolute minimum 6 to 9 months and probably longer. If council accepts our offer, it can have the purchase price or the purchase proceeds fully in its coffers within 60 or 90 days from signing off on a contract, which we could do at any time that we were presented with a contract. So there's clearly a significant issue there in terms of why would council wish to proceed with a vastly inferior offer that presents it with no certainty. Now, if I was to take a step back, and again, I know how, I've got a fair idea how these things work, and this comes back to the sale process being flawed. It is my guess that council has run the sale process as a result of having discussions or negotiations with Repus regarding the parcel of land, and has wanted to accept a proposal from Repus, but clearly has the statutory obligation to run the sale process publicly. So it has ticked the box by running the one ad and sending out the expression of interest documentation to anyone who saw that ad, but only saw that ad because, as I said earlier, there was absolutely no marketing done. So we then get ourselves into this pickle of having gone through the process, ticked the minimum statutory requirement boxes, as I'm sure council has most likely done, but you now have a situation where you're wanting to proceed with one offer that is, what is it? It's 15% below an offer on the table that we're proposing that has no conditions attached. I understand, you know, with what's happened next door with IMIX, which frankly has been an absolute disaster, I guess as evidenced by the 85 odd objections to the planning permit amendment that IMIX sought and was rejected and is now heading to VCAT. I can understand council is desperate to avoid this situation occurring again, and that's understandable. But clearly, in terms of what we would be seeking to do with the land, and council would know that the absolute last thing that we will do is to do anything with this parcel of land that would be contrary or would hurt any of the neighbouring adjoining owners, particularly residential estates, because clearly this is an area that is rapidly growing as a residential, in terms of the various residential subdivisions that include Riverside Estate, but is not just limited to Riverside. I mean, you've got Alpine Views, Castle Verde, Meridian, all situated nearby. and all of whom have been very much impacted by IMIX. So yes, as part of the expression of interest process to council, our group was not able to identify what we proposed for the land, but you would know absolutely that we're not going to do anything with the land contrary to surrounding usages. Just let me just check. This is one. I think there might have been one other point that I was seeking to make. So I think it's pretty clear cut, or from my point of view, I can't understand why council would wish to proceed with the offer that they currently have. I don't understand why you wouldn't have run a second stage process. There's a lot of money being left on the table if council continues down the path it is, and $285,000 to be precise. And I'm sure that council would find considerable positive usage to put those extra funds to if our offer was accepted. And I guess finally, if you adopted the pub test and the ratepayers that you act for, would they be happy with this outcome? I mean, the other point I make is I can understand in a situation where you're selling a prime piece of real estate in the Wodonga CBD, where architectural significance, impact on the built form is highly critical. This is not, selling an industrial parcel of land 5 or 6 kilometres out of town has no architectural significance. So I don't think council would really want to rely on the fact that the issuing or the negotiation of a planning permit, a 173, was critical to the decision to accept an offer that is considerably below the offer that our group has made. So they were really the main points that I wanted to elaborate upon today. As I said, if you take what I've just said in conjunction with the written submission, I'd be very interested to see how council intends to respond when it does indeed respond.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. I'm going to run through the councillors and see if there's any questions. Councillor Watson, did you have any questions?
No, Madam Mayor. Thanks for your presentation, Andrew.
Thanks,
Thanks, councillor.
Councillor Bennett? No. Councillor Mitchell?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hall?
Just a question, Andrew. That offer, I was just trying to see whether I had any information on it, but and I may have. That offer that was made to the CEO on the Thursday after the council meeting,
Yes.
Was that in writing?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hall, I'm just going to go for clarity from the CEO. We received a copy of that email, CEO?
We did receive a copy of that email, yes. Obviously, the ELI process at that point in time had closed, and therefore we advised Andrew that the only way to address this was through this process, the 223 process, and that's why Andrew's made his submission today.
Thank you. Councillor Lowe? Sorry, Councillor Hall, you didn't have any more questions? No, Councillor Lowe?
Yeah, mine's just more, it's a clarifying question to the CEO through you, Madam Mayor, if I can. The parcel of land, I'm just picking up on Andrew's point, he was saying it's only just been advertised for sale. Was that particular parcel of land advertised at the same time as the IMIX site? No. Has it been advertised for sale previously? I thought it had.
Yes, I believe it has, but I think that predates my time in council. I don't know whether Officer Schultz could put a date or
2016, I believe. Yeah, Deb?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. It was in 2016 as an expression of interest at the same time that we sold the old sale yard site.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Councillor Lowe? Any other questions?
Not at this stage, thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, I have one, and I just wanted to reconfirm, and I want to check what I heard. At this point, you have no intent or design or plan for use of that land?
No, not that we have no intent. We would intend, like everything we do. We're not land bankers. It would be our intent to develop it as soon as is realistic, but it does need to be tenancy driven. So yes, but no, we would not be buying it with the view of sitting on it indefinitely. Our intent has, everything we do is to develop it as soon as we can in a timely manner.
Yep.
My point was simply that, it's not, there's nothing strategic in term or from an architectural perspective that is significant about the site.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I guess for a bit of clarity too, where you talked about you'd be happy to settle on contract, that could happen as soon as a contract will be drawn up. From a council perspective, I would assume that, and I'm going to look to the CEO, that a 173, which you made reference to it taking time, would still apply to whomever we sell it to, and also would be attached to contract, just so you are aware that that would necessarily be taken off.
Look, I'm aware of that, but clearly, and that's fine. I mean, if we have to sign a 173 or a planning permit as part of that, I've got no issue with that. But having said that, you're certainly not obliged to, because your own documentation gives you the ability to sign a contract without those items attached to it.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, councillors, do you have any questions of Councillor Lowe?
Andrew, you just touched on. Have you got an idea of what you would develop it as out there? And obviously industrial size, but what size they would be, blah, 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 blah.
Look, not specifically, councillor. Again, we would be demand driven, and we would be actively out there looking for suitable tenants, but suitable, and I know that it's an industrial zoning and that can be fairly broadly encompassing. The one thing we won't do is allow any sort of tenancy that is going to in any way compromise the adjacent residential development. And I guess whether we like it or not, we've seen that with IMEX. Yes, on one hand, you can argue that it complies with the zoning, but the reality is that type of usage so close to a significant residential estate is just totally, shouldn't be allowed. So we're not going to allow anything, even if it broadly encompasses industrial zoning, we're not going to allow anything to be developed that is going to be an aggravation to its neighbours.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That makes sense, given you're the neighbour. Andrew, did you have anything else did you have any specific questions or any around process or anything else from here?
Look, not specifically, councillor. I think I've, between the written submission and the commentary today, I suppose simply ask that council be mindful that as I said, I think you've probably ticked the statutory box of public notification, but there hasn't been, it's not commercial practice to sell land. And if price maximisation is important, and I'm sure it is, because I know your ratepayers want you to get as much money for assets that you sell without compromising anything else that you might do.
Absolutely, one of the definite considerations. Thank you again for your presentation today and for your submission and for your offer. That I guess concludes, and councillors, we do have a recommendation there to record and include today's presentation for consideration on the 21st. So that recommendation is there on page 10. Do I have someone move that recommendation for me, please? Thanks, Councillor Bennett. Seconder. Thanks, Councillor Hall. Councillor Bennett, did you wish to say anything? Councillor Hall? Shaking the head, no, great. Did anybody wish to speak against that recommendation to accept today's submission? If not, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Andrew. Kelly, I am going to get you to invite Councillor Mildrum back in so we can close the meeting. You're welcome to stay online if you want, Andrew. Thanks. Welcome back, Councillor Mildrum. Do you want to just give us a voice recognition so that people know that you are there and you can hear us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for bearing with us. Councillors, that really leaves me to close today's meeting and to, remind people that we will be back for our council meeting on Monday the 21st, and on our agenda it says 9 a.m. It won't be, it'll be 6 p.m.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, we have general business, urgent business and confidential urgent business.
I will run through those.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deb. Councillors, item 7 is general business, of which we have none. Item 8, urgent business, of which we have none. Item 9, confidential urgent business, of which we have none. Puts me back to closing the meeting. Just reminding everybody on the agenda, it says 9 a.m. on the 21st, it will actually be 6 p.m. as our normal council meeting time and schedule. Thank you for joining us this morning, councillors, and I will see you when you reconvene on our briefing session. So log back out and log back into that original briefing session if you could, please. And thank you for anybody who has tuned in at home. And again, thank you to our presenters this morning. So officially, meeting is closed.